let's talk about Howard Stern. Because we got time for one more segment, and we got the story from the New York Times. 13 things we learned from Harris's interview with Howard Stern.
Great.
I'll tell you what I learned. They say in a lengthy sit-down, the veteran radio host extracted an array of new details about Kamala Harris's life. What I learned is that Kamala Harris doesn't actually care about equity or diversity because Howard Stern is an unrepentant racist. That's not fair. He actually is a repentant racist. But he had like some of the most ridiculously racist bits back in his day that have gone viral that are shocking even to me. There's one where he's in total blackface, dropping the N-word over and over and over again. I'm like, wow. I mean, he was a shock jock, right? Kamala didn't care about that. This guy's flipped. Howard Stern, what happened to the guy? Did his balls drop off? Like, how did he go from saying, F you, I will say whatever I want, and no one can stop me, to please, I'll say whatever you tell me?
I think his culture changed, right? Like, he wants to stay relevant, and I think we can see this over and over again with the Me Too movement and other things, like the tolerance for sort of the brash, maybe borderline vulgar radio hosts is not the same that it once was. So once his shtick lost a little bit of the shock and awe that maybe it had at the beginning that rallied the fans, it became subject to the same kind of scrutiny that all people become subject to in a more progressive society.
I don't know. I didn't watch this interview. Did Howard Stern do his usual shtick where he invites Kamala's mama or dad on and asks them to kiss or something?
Probably
I
not,
think,
right?
I think it's the one time he didn't fire hot dogs at a woman's breasts. I mean, like, isn't this the guy that like would do things like that? Now, look, fine. Look, far be it from me to criticize a guy's past and all that stuff. He's truly changed. But it's very interesting how he just lost his nerve. You don't got to be racist and degrading to women to have a pair. You know what I mean? You can actually say things like, look, you are worthy of criticism, Kamala Harris. I got no problem criticizing Donald Trump. That I heard Trump supporters yell at me all the time. It's fine. You know, this is the realm of politics. Howard Stern not only abandoned his edge, but he went completely the other direction. What's the opposite of a shock jock?
Mainstream radio host and
yeah, he's
NPR
just
host.
filibustering the radio over there. I mean, I really do think that this is a level of like, the other one could be he got famous and then therefore started interviewing when he was interviewing famous people. Like these are people that are actually now in his social circle, so he doesn't necessarily want to be asking them all these questions that will make them upset or treating them in sort of these scandalous ways.
Have you guys seen because they mentioned in this she enjoyed Maya Rudolph's impression of her? Did you see the SNL clip where they made fun of the debate? Mm-hmm. Yo, they mocked Kamala Harris as being a drunk. Mm-hmm. They had her like drinking wine and the guy should have chosen Josh, and he's like, she's like, no, and she pours more wine and keeps drinking.
Is any of that true? Like, is those clips I've seen where she's supposedly slurring her words? Is she really? What's the?
I don't know.
I don't think her campaign has released a statement about it.
But this is the interesting thing about the media, what's happening in the media. I mean, CBS did not give her an easy softball interview. They pressed her several times. They said, Bill Whitaker says, the border crisis, do you regret undoing Trump's policies? And she's like, well, I'm just trying to work on solutions. He goes, yeah, but the illegal immigration's quadrupled. She's like, hey, we cut it in half. It's like, so that's still double. They pressed her on this. SNL, I don't know if Kamala Harris is actually a drunk. I think it's a strong possibility because there are these videos. Sure, maybe. Not confirmed. So it's pretty surprising that SNL was like, and the angle we're going with Harris is that she's a drunk. That's pretty impressive for SNL. And they mocked Tim Waltz for saying he was friends with school shooters.
The thing is, Maya Rudolph's performance or her parody of Kamala Harris when they did it in 2020 was really successful. People loved the caricature of Kamala. I think maybe it's testament to Maya Rudolph. She's got good comedic timing or whatever. But she made Kamala Harris likable to the American public in a way that Kamala Harris is actually not. So even if on the inside Kamala Harris is really mad about the jab about wine drinking or whatever else, there's one line that I saw where she's like, my campaign is like Sabrina Carpenter's song Espresso. Like, you like the vibes, but it doesn't mean anything. Like, even if these were making her mad, Maya Rudolph as a sort of celebrity and as someone who is actually entertaining the public is not someone she can attack. Because, again, she is the actual likable version of Kamala.
Also, I think it's kind of an endorsement in a certain sense because they're like everybody can relate to being drunk, right? Like it's sort of like playful criticism. There's no mocking of her for whatever, not having a single clear position on anything.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't know, I'm a grumpy old man. I'm a Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, 1970s Saturday Night Live kind of guy. I just don't think they're that great anymore.
I think that's a widely shared opinion.
It's been fascinating to see these political campaigns, both the Kamala Harris and Donald Trump campaign, engage more with social media platforms and I guess people on social media. And then it's very telling to see which candidate presidential campaigns pick which social media people to have them do their interviews. So Kamala Harris is out here picking the Call Her Daddy Alex Cooper person. They're picking Howard Stern. Donald Trump's team's picking people like Aiden Ross. Obviously, Tim Pool had the Trump interview. It's just an interesting contrast in who these campaigns have interviewed them from the social media realm, things that obviously didn't exist 20 years ago and wasn't as potent a decade ago.
It's interesting how things are changing, man. I have no idea what we're going to see in the next year. I have no idea what we're going to see in 28 days. We're not going to know who wins the election on election night. So what's going to happen? I was just talking with I was talking with a guy who does like ad network stuff. I'll keep it a little bit vague. And I'm just like, is interest in the election going to wane after the election? And he was like, might increase. And I'm like, that's actually an interesting point. Traditionally, after a 4-year election, interest in politics drops off into oblivion because people are like, please, no more. I am done.
It depends on who wins. I think the media is salivating for a second Trump turn, although they will not say it. All the liberal news outlets had their best 4 years under Donald Trump. I don't know if that's because of his economy. I don't know if that's because of the content he provided.
But there is a mathematical limit. Mm-hmm. Watching this hurricane stuff, and they're like, it looks like Milton's approaching the mathematical limit of what a hurricane can be in these waters. It's like, wow. But there's a mathematical limit to how much you can extract in media. I think you're right. The media wants Trump to win because they know it's going to be just the best ratings they've ever got. But at a certain point, the ratings of hysteria result in people's brains exploding. Figuratively. Like, people are going to be ripping each other to shreds. I don't know that's a good thing.
MSNBC's audience's heads have remained exploded since. And I don't know, you can't blow it up more than once. So after all that Rachel Maddow garbage that she's fed you over the years, I don't know if you could get any more brainwashed.
Isn't that kind of wild, though? If you listen to Howard Stern and Rachel Maddow, you have no idea what's happening in the world. And if you listen to Fox News, you're going to get a biased take on it, but you'll know what's happening in the world. Like, Fox News' approach is going to say, well, Donald Trump came out and he said X, Y, and Z, and we like it. MSNBC is going to come out and say, Donald Trump actually said that he was Hitler and it's a bad thing. And you're like, well, he didn't say that. That's ridiculous. The corporate press lies about who Trump is and what he wants. And then you see in right-wing media, I don't like saying right-wing because what does that even mean? But opposition media, whatever, they'll be honest about Trump and then explain why they either like or don't like it. But you don't get that with the corporate press. So these people live in some fictional, delusional state where they have no idea what's actually happening.
You'll see many oppositional interviews in the right-wing media ecosystem to Trump, and something that's a lot less common is the reverse of that, with these left-wing outlets being consistently difficult in their interviewing styles with Kamala Harris. I'm glad Whitaker, that's why I commended him earlier, deciding to take a new path, because a lot of journalists had a lot of opportunities at Kamala. The debate interviewers had a lot of opportunity to get their name out there.
I don't actually know that there have been that many opportunities to push Kamala Harris because her campaign has been so guarded with her, right? Like even her first big interview, she had to have Tim Walz with her as some sort of chaperone or emotional support dog
to hold her hand.
It was very weird. I wonder if there are two paths that my brain goes down. One is they are selectively picking who gets to have the hardball questions, right? Like they're not going to go on Fox News and do. I mean, I think Tim Walz just did a Fox and Friends or whatever the Fox morning show is, but Kamala Harris is not going to go on Fox News and face hard questions. It's still a sort of sympathetic outlet that's been allowed to push her on things, and in part that's because they aren't really going to pull too many clips that make her look bad. The other part is I think that the American public are frustrated, and more every year, corporate media realizes that their biggest threat is independent media, which is gaining confidence from voters. And so maybe to your point, they can't continue on and on with the shtick of like everything is fine and everything Kamala or whoever has the Democratic endorsement says is great and everything Trump says is awful without looking foolish and just continuing to hemorrhage viewers.
To be fair, if I were the Tim Walz campaign, or I guess Kamala Harris campaign, I'd also say Tim Walz should no longer go on Fox News because that Shannon Bream interview was atrocious. Shannon Bream railed him on his abortion stance about Roe v. Wade in particular, and how in Minnesota he passed laws where there would be no limits to abortion.
Right.
And he said otherwise, but again, nobody fact checks. Nobody in the left wing cares about fact checking Kamala Harris or Tim Walz, but every little thing coming out of Donald Trump, or especially J.D. Vance's mouth recently, instantly gets fact checked.
Right. I mean, that's because he's smooth and did well. I mean, they wanted him to be sort of an awkward, women-hating weirdo, and in fact, he's a very well-spoken person. I mean, he was in PR for the military. It's not his first time dealing with hostile interviewers as a politician or before that. I think that, you know, I don't envy the Harris-Walz campaign staffers who are in charge of booking interviews because they have two candidates who prove to not be particularly charismatic. I know people argue Walz has, I don't know how you feel about Tim Walz, but like that he has some sort of like salt of the earth charm. I don't really see
like
it.
He appeals to old white people. That was the idea behind it. Like he's a football coach, former football coach,
kind of, or like
relatable,
he's like
macho.
a man of the people. I never really felt this way, but I know that I listened to an interview with voters from Minnesota that were like, he's like a great debater and all this stuff, and then he did really badly.
Haven't you seen the camo hat? I mean, he's obviously
if you don a camo hat, you're obviously one of those people. The camo hat reminds me of the Carhartt hat. I don't know if you guys ever saw this meme, but Carhartt, the brand, the beanies got
Carhartt.
really popular. Okay, and there was like a meme that was like, you know, the thing about Carhartt is like you don't know if a hipster's wearing them, you don't know if like a like leather-handed blue-collar man, or like you don't know who's wearing it. It really does appeal to everyone. Do you have an opinion on Tim Walz? Is he endorsing Kamala Harris, or is he making Kamala Harris better for you?
Well, he seems to me like they chose him because they didn't want somebody who would overshadow Kamala, and it seems like this kind of weird, kind of almost like gender politics, like with choosing him. He seems, when I look at him visually, he looks a little goofy to me, and like a little sort of like a milk toast candidate, if that's the right phrase. But I really don't know that much about him, and I just, he seems to me, okay, we need a guy in there, we need something for the white men, but we gotta have somebody who's not going to, you know, compete with her in terms of star power, right? Like she's very much the star, but like.
But that's a very loose use of that word.
Right? Yeah. Fair
She's
enough.
a D- and he's an F.
Right. She's sort of like the candle to his burned out light bulb, but, you know, she still gets to be brighter than he is.
That's why I'm saying I can't imagine them winning. Not that Kamala can't win. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I genuinely can't imagine a scenario where someone so lacking actually wins the presidency, with Donald Trump with all of the historical iconography surrounding him, shaking hands with RFK Jr. with explosions behind him. Like literally that happened. And then you've got on the ground with his hands over his face with the blood coming down and then raising his fist in the air. So many moments of this past year just scream historical record that if this man were to lose, life would it seems so strange that all of these major historical moments would lead to nothing. But maybe it does. I don't know.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe and we'll see you all there.